In the world of second citizenship, passports, sovereignty, freedom of movement, there's a mobility asset denial domino effect. Denial domino effect. Malakouti Law here. I'm a dual citizenship attorney. This is going to be a little bit of a deep dive on a topic that is on the surface possibly theoretical. Possibly it comes off as theoretical, but it's very real. It's a very real dynamic. It has a lot of effect in practice. It's just that not that many people really know about this because most people don't have enough multi-jurisdictional experience. So this is what I'm talking about. So first of all, mobility asset. What I mean by that is any type of citizenship, residency, visa, passport, electronic travel authorization, and then denial domino effect. What I mean by this is these things, these mobility assets are interconnected. Nation states in the world today treat these as interconnected, and a denial of one oftentimes doesn't just have the effect of depriving you of the benefits of that one mobility asset. It sometimes has a domino effect, a negative domino effect of leading either directly to denial of another mobility asset, or at least serving as a negative factor for another mobility asset that you are applying for or trying to maintain. Let me give you an example. Okay, so for example, passport revocation. In many countries, foreign countries, if your foreign passport is revoked, it causes you to fall out of residency status if you're resident in that country. Okay, and that's because some countries have in their domestic law that a requirement to be in residency and lawful status is to have a valid foreign passport. Okay, so that's a domino effect. Your foreign country revokes your passport for whatever reason. Maybe you didn't pay child support. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe you're a political dissident, whatever it is. But that foreign country revokes your passport. Okay, so your country or one of your countries of citizenship, and that can knock down the next domino, which is cause you to fall out of status in the country. Okay. When you fall out of status in the country, that has another knock-on domino effect of possibly locking you in the jurisdiction. Okay. Because in some countries, if you're out of status, you might have difficulty leaving through exit controls. Okay, so that's an example. Passport denial. Okay, if you're denied a passport, it has a mobility asset denial domino effect. So not revocation, now I'm talking about denial. A passport denial makes you unable to legally leave your country in some cases. Okay. For example, United States, 8 U.S.C. 1185 makes it unlawful for U.S. citizens to leave the United States without bearing a U.S. passport. Even if that person's a double citizen, a triple citizen, even if that person has 5 passports from 5 foreign countries. Technically, under U.S. federal law, it's unlawful for that person to leave without bearing a valid U.S. passport. Okay, so that makes it difficult, in some cases impossible, for you to leave the country. Okay, being denied a passport makes you unable to get a foreign visa. Okay, because in our current nation-state system, most countries require a valid passport in order to give a visa, to stamp a visa in. Okay, so that's another example of the mobility asset denial domino effect. And there's a lot of different examples. I'll spare you from going through all the different examples, but one of the most interesting and dynamic and changing examples right now, one of the most important examples that's coming up is the vulnerability that's presented by the rise in ETAs, electronic travel authorizations. Okay, so electronic travel authorizations are basically replacing visa-free access, visa-free travel. So whereas before, if you were a citizen of a certain country and you had visa-free access to another country, okay, we're used to up until recently, just showing up at the airport with your passport. Get your passport, make sure it's valid, book the ticket, show up at the airport. Bada bing, bada boom. And ETAs are changing that. The rise in ETAs are making it so that people have to fill out a form, typically an online form, right? That's the electronic in ETA. Fill out an online form and get approval for that form from the foreign country, or approval of that form in the foreign country, in order to be able to board the flight. Okay. So what does that mean? That means it's another application, another form that can be denied, that's deniable. Okay. So the United States has already had this for most foreign citizens that have visa-free access, right? This is called the ESTA program, otherwise known as the Visa Waiver Program. It's been around since about 2008. But this is a new thing for Americans. Americans, we've been used to just picking up and going to the airport, not bothering with visas or even electronic travel authorizations. That's changing. It changed earlier this year, 2026, for the United Kingdom, when they rolled out their ETA implementation for Americans. And the big shebang is going to come at the end of 2026 or 2027 when Europe rolls out its ETA, requirement for U.S. citizens, ETAs. Now, where's the domino effect in this? Why does this matter? Well, the domino effect comes in because as we said, that ETA can be denied, and many countries, many countries, for their citizenship applications, residency applications, visa applications, even ETA applications, many of them have a question: have you ever been denied a visa or access or entry to a foreign country? That's a question that occurs in a lot of different mobility asset applications, let's call it. Residency applications, citizenship application, visa applications. If you're denied an ETA, how do you answer that question? Is an ETA a visa? Well, a lot of countries are presenting it, at least domestically, as if it's not a visa, right? A lot of countries have statutory distinctions between an ETA and a visa. The United States is like that statutorily in the INA and in US regulations. Those two are distinguished. But in spirit, it's really the same. An ETA is really visa light, in my opinion. It's a form you have to fill out to request permission to enter a foreign country, and the permission must be granted before you can board the flight to try to go to that country. So I predict many countries moving forward over the coming years are going to start treating ETA denials as equivalent or possibly a slightly less shaded version of a visa denial. It's going to be counted as a denial. While if a country's mobility asset application, whether it be visa, residency, or citizenship, is requesting if you've ever been denied an application for a visa or entry to a foreign country, obviously to answer yes is a negative factor, right? I've not seen a country yet where the answer of yes to that question is a positive factor, where an applicant is in better shape if they can say that they've been denied visa or access to a foreign country. It's a negative factor, right? How negative is it? Your mileage varies. In some contexts, for some countries, it's going to be a very negative factor. In other countries, it's going to be less of a negative factor. But the bottom line is it's negative, okay? And that's another example of the denial domino effect. The ETA one, in my opinion, is of the greatest interest if you're from a Western country, okay? If you're from America, from Europe, from the UK. Because whereas we've been used to previously just picking up, going to the airport with our passport and traveling, if you wanted to travel to 20, 25 countries in a 5-year period, so if you wanted to average 5 countries per year, for 5 years, typically Americans, we didn't have to fill out any application, no visa, no ETAs for many of those countries. Now, increasingly, we're going to be expected to fill out ETAs, especially for Western countries. We're going to be expected to fill out ETAs for each one of those countries that we go to. So a mobility-minded American, an American who loves to travel in the coming years, over a period of 5 years, might be filling out 5, 10, maybe even 15 ETAs, 5, 10, 15 different electronic travel authorizations. That's 5 to 15 opportunities to be denied for some reason. And we're seeing denials not just for the hardened criminals, for the bad apples, but for speech. Okay, we're seeing that. Kanye West, Valentina Gomez, even another lady who's less of a celebrity. The denials for speech of ETAs may have started with big name celebrities, but they're trickling down, okay, to smaller and smaller fry. And so when you apply for an ETA 5 to 15 times over a period of 5 years, that's 5 to 15 opportunities to be denied. Those 5 to 15 opportunities to be denied are, if you want to answer other applications truthfully, 5 to 15 opportunities to create a negative factor, right? Let's say you apply for 10 ETAs in a period of 5 years as a traveler, as an avid traveler. And let's say you're denied 2. Now, fast forward, you're applying for citizenship in a foreign country, whether it be by investment or by descent, or let's say after a period of residency, and you're asked, have you ever been denied a visa or access to a foreign country? Yes, 2 times. Negative factor. Let's say down the road, you want to apply for residency in a foreign country. Let's say you want to retire. You want to retire to Spain. You want to retire to Thailand. You want to retire to wherever as part of the residency application. Have you ever been denied a visa or access to a foreign country? If you want to answer that truthfully, because of that vulnerability that you incurred by applying for 5 to 15 ETAs over a 5-year travel period, you have to answer yes. 2 times you were. And that negative factor increases the chances of you being denied for that other mobility asset. This is the mobility asset denial domino effect. It's pernicious. It's something that people from non-Western countries already understand. So when you want to apply for a visa to come to the United States, you typically have to go to an interview. Oftentimes you can be asked about previous visa denials for the United States. Okay, you could be asked for anything really at that interview, but explicitly the DS-160 asks you if you've ever been denied a visa to the United States or entry to the United States, right? And people from those countries know that that's a negative factor. This unpleasant factor is now coming to Westerners. It's now coming to Americans. And I'm recording this right now in May of 2026. I think this is going to become a bigger issue, bigger thing. It's going to come more into the travel zeitgeist of Americans moving forward, right? And I think it's going to trigger Americans to possibly be a little bit more strategic about the order in which they apply for certain mobility assets, right? And what I mean by that is, if you think you might apply for a visa, residency, or even an ETA in a country in which you think there's any chance of you incurring a denial, you might strategically hold off on making that application until you first go ahead and get another mobility asset that's more important to you. For example, residency or citizenship in a foreign country, right? The mobility asset denial domino effect is going to force a little bit more strategic planning among Americans and Westerners who care about mobility, who are mobility minded. If you're an American, if you're a Westerner that doesn't really care that much about second, third citizenship, residency, a passport stack, okay, a mobility asset portfolio, this might not affect you that much. This doesn't really apply to you that much. But for those people who are out there, okay, especially a lot of these young bucks who are online entrepreneurs in their 20s, 30s, or maybe even the late teens, who dream of having a foot in different countries, flag theory, that type of thing, who are thinking about planning long term, a 10, 15, 20-year plan to multiple citizenship. This is going to be a dynamic that's important. It's already important. It's increasingly becoming important, especially for Americans and Westerners for whom this is largely a new thing. Okay. Anyway, that's it. Malakouti Law here, dual citizenship attorney. If you like this type of content, okay, the nitty gritty, the real deal of second citizenship, freedom of movement, sovereignty, right? Practical experience combined with real primary source legal analysis. This is the channel for you. Hit the like and hit the subscribe. And if you'd like to talk about getting on the path to second citizenship, go ahead and click on the link below, book a consultation with Malakouti Law. Take care.